Hello, everyone. Today, I want to talk about something we often avoid discussing: the power of being alone and learning to be truly happy there. For many of us, being alone can sound daunting. We live in a world that tells us connection is everything, that being alone is something to escape. But what if, instead, we learn to embrace it? What if we could discover a sense of happiness within ourselves, just as we are in those quiet, solitary moments? When we think of solitude, many of us instinctively feel resistance. Being alone has a stigma, a lingering cultural impression that solitude is somehow sad, avoidable, or even unnatural. We are social beings, yes, but we're also multidimensional beings capable of finding clarity and understanding when left to our own thoughts. Solitude, in its essence, can be one of the most powerful tools we have for self-discovery. It's in solitude that we strip away the roles we play, the expectations others hold for us, and even the masks we sometimes wear, and we're left with only one person to engage with ourselves. Embracing solitude is a step into an unknown territory for many. Society has conditioned us to believe that fulfillment and validation come from external sources: relationships, careers, social acceptance. We're told that happiness is something we must chase and gather from the world around us. But what if that fulfillment, that deep sense of purpose and clarity, is not out there in the noise, but rather deep within? Solitude offers us the opportunity to explore this question. When we're alone, without anyone to influence us, our thoughts become our own. This can be daunting, especially if we're used to relying on others to shape our reality. In solitude, we're left with our own truths. We start to notice thoughts and beliefs that have been simmering beneath the surface, sometimes for years, suppressed or simply ignored. The quiet of solitude creates a space where these thoughts can rise, be acknowledged, and ultimately be understood. Self-discovery through solitude is not always comfortable. In fact, it's rarely easy. For many of us, sitting alone without distractions can feel like confronting a stranger. We might even avoid it at all costs, reaching for our phones, turning on the TV, finding someone to talk to, anything to avoid the silence of our own minds. This avoidance comes from a place of fear, a fear of discovering something we might not like about ourselves or facing emotions that we've hidden away. But discomfort is part of growth. It's within that discomfort that we begin to break down barriers, to open ourselves up, and to let the truth of who we are come forward. Solitude serves as a mirror. When we're alone, we're better able to observe ourselves without the filters and influences of others' perceptions. There's no one to impress, no expectations to meet, and no judgments to dodge. Instead, we're faced with the raw reality of who we are. In solitude, we may uncover parts of ourselves that we had never noticed before. We might realize patterns in our thoughts and behaviors that we weren't aware of, or we might find new aspects of ourselves that surprise us. This kind of self-awareness is a vital step in the journey of self-discovery, as it helps us begin to understand why we think, feel, and act the way we do. When we are constantly in the presence of others, it can be easy to become a reflection of the people around us. We may adopt their beliefs, their ways of thinking, and even their mannerisms, sometimes without even realizing it. But in solitude, there is no one to emulate. There's only you. In this space, you start to ask yourself questions like, who am I, really? What do I want out of life? What matters to me? These questions may sound simple, but they are profound. Solitude gives us the time and space to seek genuine answers, free from outside influence. Solitude also allows us to reconnect with our intuition. Our intuition is a guiding force, a deeply personal sense of what feels right or wrong for us as individuals. Yet in our busy, interconnected lives, this intuition can become clouded by external noise. In solitude, however, we can listen closely to our inner voice, allowing it to guide us without the interference of others' opinions or expectations. This reconnection with intuition can be a powerful tool for self-discovery, helping us to make decisions and life choices that align with our true selves, rather than the pressures we may feel from the outside world. In the silence of solitude, we are also granted the opportunity to reflect deeply on our past experiences and emotions. Often, in the rush of everyday life, we don't take the time to process our feelings fully. We move from one task to another, pushing difficult emotions aside in an effort to stay productive and keep up with the pace of life. But in solitude, these emotions have room to breathe. We can look back on past experiences with a sense of clarity and perspective, allowing ourselves to process them more fully. This reflective time is crucial for self-discovery, as it helps us understand how our past has shaped us, how we've responded to challenges, and how we've grown over time. Embracing solitude also gives us the freedom to pursue our passions and interests without any external judgment or validation. In solitude, there's no pressure to conform or to impress. We can experiment, try new things, and explore hobbies and interests simply for the joy of it. This uninhibited exploration can reveal aspects of our personalities and talents that we may not have known were there. We may uncover a new passion or hidden talent that brings us a deep sense of fulfillment. These moments of discovery contribute to a richer understanding of who we are, independent of societal expectations or validation from others. Furthermore, solitude teaches us to rely on ourselves. In solitude, we learn to become comfortable with our own company. We develop resilience and self-sufficiency, realizing that we can find strength and peace within ourselves. This sense of self-reliance is an invaluable part of self-discovery, as it allows us to feel secure and grounded regardless of external circumstances. Solitude can feel like a journey into the unknown, but it is also a journey toward home, toward a place within ourselves where we feel a sense of belonging and authenticity. Being alone is often misunderstood. We've been conditioned to see it as something undesirable or even shameful, as if solitude is an indication of something lacking. We live in a world where being alone can sometimes seem synonymous with being lonely, isolated, or incomplete. But what if this view is limiting our understanding? What if being alone can be a powerful, fulfilling experience, a space of growth and contentment? To redefine what it means to be alone, we need to challenge the associations we've been taught and open our minds to the possibility that solitude can be a source of strength, discovery, and joy. Alone time is not the same as loneliness. While loneliness is often an uncomfortable feeling that stems from a desire for connection, solitude is a chosen state of being alone, one that can feel empowering and restful. It's a space where you are free from the expectations and judgments of others, where you can let your guard down, and where you can start to get in touch with your own thoughts, feelings, and desires without outside influence. Redefining what it means to be alone is about learning to cherish that time with yourself, about recognizing the value in solitude as something that can be nurturing and positive rather than something to be avoided. To truly appreciate what it means to be alone, we need to look beyond the noise and constant demands of social life. We're taught from a young age that to be successful, likable, and normal, we should always be surrounded by people, engaging in relationships and social activities. This message can be so deeply embedded that even the idea of spending time alone may trigger feelings of guilt or inadequacy. However, when we allow ourselves the chance to be alone, we are actually giving ourselves permission to take a break from these social obligations and return to our authentic selves. Alone time is an opportunity to experience life on our own terms without the need to perform or conform to anyone's expectations. In the presence of others, we sometimes adapt, even unconsciously, to fit the social dynamics around us. We might hold back certain thoughts, adjust our personalities, or feel compelled to act in ways that align with group norms. But when we're alone, we can be completely genuine. We can laugh at our own jokes, pursue our own interests, and give voice to our own thoughts. In these solitary moments, we're able to discover who we really are without external influences shaping our behavior. In this way, being alone is a chance to cultivate self-awareness. We learn what drives us, what brings us peace, and what truly fulfills us. Spending time alone allows us to pay attention to our inner worlds, noticing things we may have overlooked or ignored in the presence of others. For example, we might notice patterns in our thoughts or identify emotions we haven't fully processed. Without distractions, we can engage in meaningful self-reflection, discovering things about ourselves that often get lost in the rush of daily life. Being alone can also be a time to reconnect with our creative selves. Solitude provides a blank canvas where we can explore ideas and passions without inhibition. Many artists, writers, and thinkers have valued solitude as an essential space for creative work, a place where ideas can flow freely, unencumbered by social expectations. Alone time allows us to tap into our creativity, to try new things without fear of judgment, and to embrace our imagination fully. Whether it's through painting, writing, crafting, or simply thinking, solitude gives us the freedom to create, to explore, and to express ourselves in ways we might not in social situations. Alone time can also be an experience of peace and calm. Life can be overwhelming, and we're often surrounded by noise, both literal and figurative. We may feel the need to keep up with conversations, respond to messages, and meet the demands of friends, family, or colleagues. In solitude, however, we're able to disconnect from this constant stream of interaction and simply be. It's a chance to experience quiet, to take deep breaths, and to exist without pressure. For many, this kind of alone time can be deeply rejuvenating, offering a chance to rest and reset, free from any need to give or receive attention. Redefining what it means to be alone is also about embracing the joy of independence. Being alone teaches us self-reliance and shows us that we're capable of navigating life without relying on others for validation or guidance. It encourages us to make our own choices, to listen to our own instincts, and to follow our own paths. This independence can be incredibly empowering, as it reminds us that our happiness and sense of self-worth don't depend on others' approval or presence. When we learn to enjoy being alone, we build a sense of confidence in our own abilities and judgment, making us more resilient and grounded in who we are. There's a sense of freedom in embracing solitude that is hard to find elsewhere. Alone time gives us the freedom to explore new interests, to challenge ourselves, and to simply enjoy our own company. This freedom is not about escaping from others, but rather about cultivating a relationship with ourselves. It's about discovering that we are enough, that we have the capacity to meet our own needs and to create a fulfilling life from within. In this way, being alone becomes not a limitation, but a form of liberation, a reminder that we are whole and complete as we are. For those who fear being alone, it's worth considering that some of the most meaningful relationships we can cultivate are the ones we have with ourselves. Alone time is an invitation to deepen that relationship, to learn what truly matters to us, and to appreciate ourselves fully. It's an opportunity to explore our inner landscapes, to ask ourselves what we value, and to understand who we are beyond the roles we play in society. The beauty of alone time is that it's entirely ours. We can choose to spend it however we wish, allowing it to become a source of joy and fulfillment that no one else can provide. Through solitude, we discover that being alone doesn't mean being deprived of companionship. It means finding companionship within. We begin to see that alone time is not something to dread, but something to treasure. When we redefine what it means to be alone, we start to understand that solitude is not a state of lack, but a space of wholeness, a moment to pause, reflect, and grow in ways that can only happen in the quiet company of ourselves. In a world that often measures our worth by external achievements, appearances, and social approval, self-compassion and self-acceptance can seem like foreign concepts. Many of us are accustomed to self-criticism, constantly evaluating our worth based on how we think we measure up to others or to an ideal we've constructed in our minds. We're tough on ourselves, demanding perfection, productivity, and unwavering success. But what if, instead, we could turn inward with gentleness? What if we learned to see ourselves with kindness, with understanding, and with acceptance, no matter where we are in life? Cultivating self-compassion and self-acceptance is about redefining our relationship with ourselves, grounding it in empathy and respect, rather than judgment or expectation. Self-compassion begins with acknowledging our imperfections. It's recognizing that we are human, and that being human means we will make mistakes, experience setbacks, and encounter times of vulnerability. Instead of seeing these moments as failures, self-compassion encourages us to treat them as part of the shared human experience. Everyone struggles, everyone faces disappointments, and everyone has insecurities. When we can see our difficulties in this light, we realize we are not alone, and we can let go of the tendency to isolate ourselves in shame. Embracing our imperfections doesn't mean resigning ourselves to mediocrity or giving up on growth. It means accepting that growth is a journey and that we don't have to be perfect to be worthy of love and understanding. Self-compassion also involves talking to ourselves with the same kindness we would extend to a friend. Think about how you might console a friend who feels they failed. You probably remind them of their strengths, reassure them that one mistake doesn't define them, and offer your unwavering support. Yet, when it comes to ourselves, we often do the opposite. We dwell on our perceived shortcomings, replay our mistakes in our minds, and even berate ourselves for not living up to impossibly high standards. Cultivating self-compassion means challenging this inner dialogue and learning to replace self-criticism with gentle encouragement. It's about becoming our own ally instead of our harshest critic. One of the most transformative aspects of self-compassion is learning to forgive ourselves. We all carry regrets times we said the wrong thing, made a poor decision, or hurt someone unintentionally. These memories can weigh on us, trapping us in a cycle of guilt and self-blame. But self-compassion asks us to release this guilt. Forgiving ourselves means accepting that we are all in a process of learning and evolving. Mistakes are opportunities for growth, not reasons for endless punishment. By practicing self-forgiveness, we free ourselves from the burden of regret and allow ourselves to move forward with a sense of renewed purpose and understanding. In addition to self-compassion, self-acceptance is a crucial component of a healthy, grounded sense of self. Self-acceptance means embracing all parts of ourselves, the parts we love and the parts we may struggle with. We're often quick to celebrate our successes and strengths, but we may hide or deny our perceived weaknesses and flaws. Self-acceptance is the practice of acknowledging and even welcoming all aspects of who we are. It's about realizing that we are multifaceted, that our value doesn't come from meeting a certain standard, and that we don't need to be anyone other than who we are in this moment. Accepting ourselves fully means recognizing that we are whole and complete, even as we continue to grow. It's tempting to believe that once we reach a certain goal or meet a certain expectation, then we'll finally be worthy of acceptance. But this way of thinking sets us up for a life of perpetual striving, where self-acceptance is always just out of reach. True self-acceptance involves recognizing that our worth is not conditional, it's inherent. We don't need to earn it, nor can we lose it. This understanding allows us to be at peace with ourselves, even as we work towards personal growth. Self-acceptance also helps us to build resilience. When we accept ourselves, we're not as easily shaken by failure or criticism because our sense of worth is grounded within us, not in others' opinions or in external outcomes. This internal foundation gives us the strength to face challenges with greater confidence and resilience. Instead of crumbling under pressure, we can approach difficulties with a steady heart and an open mind, knowing that our worth is secure regardless of the outcome. Another benefit of cultivating self-compassion and self-acceptance is that it leads to healthier relationships with others. When we are kind and accepting toward ourselves, we become more compassionate and accepting of others as well. We can recognize their struggles without judgment because we've learned to do the same for ourselves. Instead of projecting our insecurities or frustrations onto others, we can approach relationships from a place of empathy and understanding. This shift not only strengthens our connections with others, but also reduces the likelihood of misunderstandings and conflicts. Practicing self-compassion and self-acceptance also encourages us to listen to our own needs. We're often so focused on meeting the demands of others or chasing external success that we neglect our own well-being. As self-compassion reminds us that our needs matter too, it's okay to set boundaries, to say no when we're overwhelmed, and to prioritize self-care. Listening to our needs is an essential part of self-acceptance because it means we value ourselves enough to take care of our physical, mental, and emotional health. When we honor our needs, we create a life that aligns with our true selves rather than one built on meeting others' expectations. Self-compassion and self-acceptance are ongoing practices. They require us to be patient with ourselves, especially when old patterns of self-criticism resurface. It's easy to fall back into self-doubt or to judge ourselves harshly when we stumble, but self-compassion invites us to be gentle, to give ourselves grace. We're all in the process of learning and growing, and no one has everything figured out. The journey to self-compassion and self-acceptance is a gradual one, but with each step, we learn to approach ourselves with more kindness, understanding, and respect. At the heart of self-compassion and self-acceptance is a fundamental shift in perspective. Rather than basing our self-worth on accomplishments, appearances, or the approval of others, we learn to root it in something deeper, a recognition of our inherent value as human beings. This inner shift frees us from the need to constantly prove ourselves or meet unrealistic standards. We start to see ourselves as deserving of love and respect simply because we exist, not because we've done something extraordinary. Cultivating self-compassion and self-acceptance empowers us to be authentically ourselves. We no longer feel the need to hide our vulnerabilities, to apologize for our mistakes, or to pretend we're someone we're not. Instead, we can embrace our true selves, flaws and all, with confidence and pride. Through self-compassion and self-acceptance, we create a foundation of inner strength, a sense of peace, and a profound, unshakable belief in our own worth. Finding joy in our own company is a skill that often goes overlooked in a world that values social connectivity and external validation. We're conditioned to associate happiness with experiences shared with others or achievements acknowledged by those around us. Yet, the ability to enjoy being alone is one of the most profound gifts we can cultivate. To find joy in our own company means learning to appreciate ourselves as we are without needing anyone else's presence or approval to feel content. It's about developing a sense of ease and fulfillment that comes from within, a state of being that allows us to embrace solitude as a source of renewal, creativity, and self-discovery. The joy of our own company is rooted in self-acceptance. When we truly accept ourselves, we become comfortable with who we are, and being alone doesn't feel empty or lacking. Instead, it becomes a chance to explore our thoughts, emotions, and passions without interruption or judgment. In solitude, we're free to drop any masks we wear in public, any personas we adopt to fit into certain spaces or relationships. It's a time to be completely authentic, to reflect on what truly matters to us, and to reconnect with our inner lives. Discovering joy in our own company is not about isolation or rejecting others. It's about creating a space where we can thrive independently, becoming more resilient and self-assured in the process. One of the greatest benefits of enjoying our own company is the opportunity to pursue activities we love without the need for social approval or feedback. We can delve into hobbies, explore new interests, and experiment with things that bring us genuine happiness. When we're alone, there's no one to impress, no one to judge our choices, and no need to conform to anyone else's tastes. This freedom allows us to engage fully in the things that bring us joy, whether it's painting, writing, reading, gardening, cooking, or simply daydreaming. By embracing our passions without the need for an audience, we learn to appreciate the act of creating, learning, and doing simply for the pleasure it brings. Alone time also gives us the space to cultivate mindfulness, which is the art of being present and fully engaged in the moment. In our busy, often distracted lives, it's easy to get caught up in future worries or past regrets. But when we spend time in our own company, we have the chance to slow down, tune in, and really appreciate the beauty of the present moment. Mindfulness can transform even the simplest activities into sources of joy. Drinking a cup of tea, taking a walk, listening to music, or just breathing deeply can become moments of profound contentment when we're fully present. Through mindfulness, we learn to experience life as it is, without constantly seeking more or needing to be somewhere else. Discovering joy in our own company is also a path to self-compassion. When we're alone, we often confront parts of ourselves that we may have been avoiding. We might notice insecurities, doubts, or fears that we typically ignore in the company of others. While this can be challenging, it's also an opportunity to practice kindness toward ourselves. Self-compassion means treating ourselves with the same gentleness and understanding we would offer a friend. When we're alone, we can acknowledge our vulnerabilities without judgment, recognizing that they're part of the human experience. By embracing all aspects of ourselves, we create a foundation of self-love and acceptance that strengthens our sense of inner peace. In solitude, we also have the freedom to reconnect with our creativity. When we're alone, our minds are free to wander, to imagine, and to create without inhibition. Many great artists, writers, and thinkers have valued solitude as a space for inspiration and invention. The quiet of being alone provides fertile ground for new ideas to emerge, for problems to be solved, and for dreams to take shape. Creativity doesn't require a masterpiece or a major project. It can be as simple as jotting down ideas, doodling, or exploring a new perspective on an old problem. By engaging with our creative side, we discover a source of joy that's always accessible, one that doesn't depend on external validation or approval. Being comfortable in our own company also cultivates a sense of independence and self-sufficiency. When we find joy in being alone, we no longer feel compelled to seek constant companionship or validation from others. Instead, we recognize that our happiness and sense of worth are rooted within us. This doesn't mean we become indifferent to others, but rather that we're able to engage in relationships from a place of fullness rather than neediness. We no longer rely on others to fill gaps or alleviate our loneliness because we've learned to be whole on our own. This independence fosters a sense of inner strength, allowing us to move through life with confidence and resilience. Alone time can also be a period of deep reflection and personal growth. When we're constantly surrounded by others, it can be challenging to hear our own thoughts or understand our true desires. In the quiet of our own company, we have the space to ask ourselves important questions. What are my values? What are my goals? What makes me feel fulfilled? Solitude allows us to get in touch with our inner voice, to listen closely to our instincts, and to identify what we truly want in life. This self-reflection brings clarity and purpose, helping us to make choices that align with our authentic selves. The joy of our own company also includes a sense of freedom that's hard to find in social settings. When we're alone, we can make choices based entirely on our own needs and desires. We can spend the day exactly as we want without accommodating anyone else's schedule or preferences. This freedom can feel like a luxury, a reminder that our time and our lives belong to us. It's an opportunity to take charge of our own happiness, to create routines and experiences that nurture our well-being, and to cultivate a life that feels meaningful on our own terms. Finding joy in our own company transforms our relationship with solitude from one of avoidance to one of celebration. We come to see that alone time isn't something to dread, but something to treasure. It becomes a time for self-discovery, for creativity, for rest, and for genuine happiness. When we learn to enjoy our own company, we become our own source of joy, unaffected by the comings and goings of others. This shift allows us to experience life with greater richness and depth as we discover that contentment is not something we need to find outside of ourselves. It's something we can create within. Through the journey of enjoying our own company, we become more attuned to our true selves, more appreciative of the present moment, and more connected to a sense of inner joy that's circumventing anyone or anything else. Discovering joy in solitude is not about withdrawing from the world, but rather about building a world within ourselves that we can carry wherever we go, one that brings us peace, fulfillment, and resilience no matter what life brings our way.